There's sound. Inez, no sound. Can you hear me, Inez? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I can't hear anything. Let's just try the chat. I'm not sure what's going on, but okay. Okay then. Everyone can hear me, but I cannot hear Inez. I'm sorry. Is there something wrong with your? Can someone indicate if they can hear Inez as well? Someone said they could not hear the intro music. And yes, no one can hear you, Inez. So I'll do the introduction then. Maybe there's something. Okay, very good. We've had a few technical difficulties today. Must be the Gemini polarity of Sagittarius working overtime with a bit of Mercury mischief going on. So if you can all hear me okay, I will proceed. I'll just close a couple of things here. So if everyone can hear me, then I'll just go into sharing my screen with, where are we now? There we go. And hopefully everyone can see that. Sagittarius, full moon being exact tomorrow morning, approximately in Western European time. And we'll wait a few more minutes for any latecomers, and then we'll go into the meditation proper, followed by a talk on Sagittarius. Very good. You can see this great picture by the Dutch artist Joffre here. You've got Zeus up there in the clouds, throwing a few thunderbolts around, or Jupiter, as is also known, the ruler of Sagittarius. And you have the half man, half horse, the centaur, aiming his arrow at the heavens, wearing a goat skin, the goat being the symbol of the next sign, Capricorn. Down here, you have the unicorn, the one horn, and the forehead that the transformed goat becomes ultimately on the mountains of initiation in Capricorn. Back here, you have a little figure that you can just make out. It's like the Hermit Tarot card, the sage with a staff and holding a light in front of him. This cloaked figure here. A few other devic angelic lives frolicking in the garden here. So Sagittarius is really about the big picture, the bird's eye view, and this painting, this beautiful painting, I think really shows that broad kind of consciousness that Sagittarius represents, ruled by Jupiter, the ruler, second ray of love wisdom. So anyway, let's prepare ourselves for the meditation. And I'm assuming everyone can see the screen. Please let me know in the chat if you can't. Just double check that. All right. So let's just one more moment. So can someone just confirm that they can see the screen and they can hear my voice? Just to be
Yes. Can you
100%.
hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Thanks,
Oh,
Ines.
finally. Okay. Something really weird, but anyway, yes, well, I
Yeah.
can see your screen and I hear your voice.
Very good. Good to hear yours too.
Thank you.
All right. So let's just release all the activity of the day thus far. Take a long, deep breath. Tuning in to the thousands of other people meditating tonight, today, depending on what time zone you're in, as we approach this very powerful Sagittarius full moon festival, moon in Gemini, Sagittarius sun. So we sound three ohms for personal and group alignment, imagining light pouring through our personality vehicles, mental, emotional, and physical, as we sound each ohm, bringing the personality into alignment and subsequently alignment with the higher self or soul. Om. Om. See the personality is radiant, radiating light as a sphere of light, moving towards a greater sphere of light, which is the soul, and blending and merging with that light so that the two become one. As we move into this global meditation service, connecting to all the other souls around the world in harmony and in concert, sounding the great invocation at the end of this meditation. So we affirm the fact of group fusion, and integration within the heart center of the new group of world servers, mediating between hierarchy and humanity. And so we sound the formula for group integration. I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. alignment. We project a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the planetary heart, the great ashram of Sanat Kumara, and towards the Christ at the heart of hierarchy. We then extend the line of light towards Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. Fire interlude. Let us hold the contemplative mind open to the extra planetary energies streaming into Shambhala and radiated out through hierarchy. Using the creative imagination, endeavor to see the three planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, gradually coming into alignment and interplay. Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity. Meditation. Reflect upon the seed thought for Sagittarius. I see the goal. I reach that goal. And then I see another. I see the goal. I reach that goal. And then I see another. Let us spend a couple of minutes reflecting upon this keynote for Sagittarius. See the goal. I reach the goal. And then I see another. Precipitation. Using the creative imagination, visualize the energies of light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet and becoming anchored on Earth in prepared physical plane centers through which the plan can manifest. And so we use the sixfold progression of divine love as the sequence of energy precipitation, Shambhala, hierarchy, Christ, the new group of world servers, men and women of goodwill everywhere, and the physical centers of distribution. So we visualize the energies of light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet through this sixfold sequence from spirit into matter, from Shambhala into the physical centers of distribution. Lower interlude. Let us refocus the consciousness as a group within the periphery of the great ashram, and together sound the affirmation. In the center of all love I stand. From that center I, the soul, will outward move. From that center I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Visualize the downpouring spiritual inflow released from Shambhala through the hierarchy and streaming into humanity through the prepared channel. And consider how these inpouring energies are establishing the pathway of light for the coming world teacher, the Christ. Distribution. As the great invocation is sounded, visualize the outpouring of light and love and power from the spiritual hierarchy, radiating through the 5 planetary inlets: New York, London, Geneva, Tokyo, and Darjeeling, irradiating the consciousness of the whole human race. Great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, Let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Oh, oh, oh. Thank you very much, everyone. Good to see you all here from all corners of the planet, from the Americas, from Europe, from New Zealand, Australia too, I think. So, of course, we'll be in the full moon period for another couple of days, usually 2 days before and after the exact time. And if you can, wherever you are, meditating 1 hour before the exact full time, before the exact time, is always the most powerful time to meditate. So, the ninth labor of Hercules corresponds to the ninth sign Sagittarius, 9 being the number of initiation, Sagittarius being the ninth gate, the ninth testing for Hercules the initiate, who treads each one of the 12 zodiac signs on his final journey home, so to speak, on his final path to liberation. DK tells us that upon the path of discipleship and the path of initiation, he is subjected during the final stages of the path to exactly 12 incarnations, passing one in each sign of the 12, each of the 12 signs. In them, he has to prove himself, attaining great moments of crisis in each of the constellations of the fixed cross in particular. From point to point, stage to stage, and finally cross to cross, he fights for his spiritual life in all the 12 houses and all the 12 constellations, subjected to countless combinations of forces and energies, rays, planetary, zodiacal, and cosmic, until he is made anew and becomes the new man, is sensitive to the entire range of spiritual vibrations in our solar system, and has achieved that detachment which will enable him to escape from the wheel of rebirth. Quite a daunting task, is it not? And so he says, particularly the constellations of the fixed cross, because they represent the first, second, and third degree initiations, represented by Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, respectively. And then from cross to cross, he says in that second paragraph, meaning leaving the fixed cross and mounting the cardinal cross, where the final two initiations take place before the person becomes liberated and gets the stage or status of a master of wisdom. So this is the labor of the Stymphalian birds, having emerged triumphant from the previous sign of Scorpio, where the hissing nine-headed Hydra is defeated in the stinking swamp of Linnea, which is a great metaphor, of course, for the lower subplanes of the astral plane. In Sagittarius, Hercules presses on through similar country, the fetid marshes of Stymphalis, where dwell the birds that wreak havoc. Sagittarius has sometimes been called the sign of the effect of Scorpio. The moment we have freed ourselves from illusion, that moment we enter into Sagittarius and we see the goal. So Hercules' teacher enjoins him to find a way to flush them from their long, secure abode, adding, "The flame that gleams beyond the mind reveals direction sure." And this is a direct reference to the intuition, of course, that emanates from the plane of Buddhi, direct knowledge beyond the mental plane. Sagittarius is regarded as a mental sign, being a fire sign, but is also an intuitive sign where the archer sends forth the arrows of thought and waits for the returning arrow of the intuition, paraphrasing the Tibetan again there. So Sagittarius has a lot to do with sound, noise, silence. Sagittarians can be quite noisy people, quite boisterous. The boisterous Sagittarian party animal, if you like. Quite often Sagittarians can be standing 2 inches from your face, speaking in a volume that's 10 times that which is needed, not really having an awareness of the potency of and power of the voice. So we are told that the power of sound and silence, joyfulness, takes the place of criticism, that creator of misery, and is the silence that sounds, joyful silence that sounds. It can only be understood through a life dedicated to the newer rhythms and to service as a whole, to the whole, I should say. Then that sounding joy and that joyful sounding can make its true meaning felt. Serenity is based upon spiritual understanding. It is not an astral condition, but a soul reaction. Interesting. The peace that lies ahead for humanity is the peace of serenity and joy. A serenity based upon spiritual understanding. These two qualities of the soul, serenity and joy, are the indications that the soul, one who stands alone, is controlling the personality, circumstance, and all environing conditions of life. So, as the famous Seinfeld episode says, serenity now. Give me some peace from all this madness going on around me. And of course, we know that much of that peace can be attained through meditation, as the Buddha has taught us. I think this guy here is Lao Tzu, the famous Chinese sage. This is a painting by Nicholas Roerich. the wandering monk or the wandering sage. Whoops. Trying to drag this toolbar around here. Keeps on getting in the way. Just a minute. There we go. So sound is both a building and destroying agency, depending upon how it is used. The ancient mantrams that have been created emerged from the realm of the abstract mind, where philosophical thought reigns supreme. This is why Sagittarius is the sign of religion and philosophy. The archer's arrow pierces the cloud of thought, that so-called rain cloud of noble things. It contains the divine blueprint of universal ideas. Similarly, the archer unleashes the arrow of thought and waits the returning arrow of intuition. Now, I skipped the bit about the birds in Stymphalos. Basically, Hercules finds these gigantic symbols. In this particular painting, he's depicted with a bell, ringing a bell, and the sound of which scares the birds away. But in the Alice Bailey version and in other mythological versions, it's a pair of cymbals that makes this deafening clang that completely scares all the birds away from the marsh. So this implies, of course, the use of mantric sound. Sound can destroy and it can create, as we know. The famous dropping of the walls of Jericho was based upon magical incantations and sound back in the old Atlantean times. So the archer's arrow pierces the cloud of thought, and Hercules achieved success by overwhelming the raucous chorus by creating an even greater dissonance with his symbols. So here's a paradox, because Sagittarius is traditionally regarded as a sign of science, recalling the ancient mystery schools where the new applicant was not allowed to talk, but to watch and work. So silence is also needed at times in the work of the ageless wisdom in refraining from saying things that others may not be ready to hear or understand. A bit of liberal diplomacy or restraint, you might say. When Jesus stood in silence before Herod, refusing to respond to accusations from his persecutors, he was not going to engage with the crystallized, separative thought of the old religion and cultural tradition. So the lesson of Sagittarius is restraint of speech through control of thought. Not an easy task for this oft-times indiscreet sign of Sagittarius that can be loud and fall into the Gemini polarity of the gossip trap. And note that the word discreet is linked to discrimination, a quality of Virgo, a sign that shares the mutable cross with often undiscriminating Sagittarius. Because of Sagittarius's Jupiterian kind of one size fits all, so to speak, everything is just channeled through one funnel without any filter. Virgo, that other point of the mutable cross, is the filter, is the discrimination. And again, we understand how important it is to recognize the polar opposites in astrology, the Gemini polarity of Sagittarius, for instance, but also the whole cross, the whole mutable cross or whole fixed cross or cardinal cross. Because the rulers of all those four signs all have, both exoteric and esoteric, all have an effect, plus the rays that they rule also have an effect, and the signs themselves have certain rays coming through them. So they really have quite a complex matrix of forces pouring through. All right, so the Gemini Sagittarius axis. Here we have Gemini down here on the right-hand corner, twins, the warring brothers, often called warring because the recalcitrant personality is indifferent to the soul that is knocking on the door, is trying to impress the personality. And then we have Sagittarius. One of the ancient symbols of is, of course, the centaur with the bow and arrow. But we are told in esoteric astrology that that is more of an Atlantean symbol, signifying animal man, or man that hadn't quite conquered his animal nature. So now the main symbol for Sagittarius is simply the bow and the arrow, indicating the direction of thought. And Sagittarians can be very one-pointed to the point of being fanatical. And that's why, as a sign which rules religion, that has the sixth ray of devotion and idealism coming through it, there can be generated quite a strong emotional attachment to ideas, which creates fundamentalism in religion, but also in any sphere of human activity. Sagittarius is a sign of truth, while its opposite Gemini can be a sign of deception brought about by the distortions which take place through the manifestation of ideas from higher mind to lower mind, that part of the imperfect personality. Mercury, of course, in its lower aspect, has Mercury, the mischief, the messenger, the trickster, is often responsible for that deceptive nature of Gemini. Yet, a reversal of these roles, Gemini searches for truth via the facts, and Sagittarius can deceive itself through blinded idealism or the illusory habitation of an ivory tower of thought. And this can take place in the realm of esotericism, of which we are all students. Either way, this axis is about truth and deception, unconscious or conscious, yet it aspires to truth's illumined expression through speech and communication. Both signs are intuitive, Sagittarius and Gemini. Sagittarius via its ruler Jupiter, which rules the heart, Gemini through its rulership of the heart's endocrine gland, the thymus, and also the fact that the only ray to pass through this sign, Gemini, is the Jupiter-ruled second ray of love wisdom. But I would also say the intuition is represented by Mercury in its highest expression. Any comments or questions so far? Clarifications? Put your questions in the chat if you wish. I'll keep an eye on that. Very good. So where were we? Sagittarius, Gemini. The moon in Gemini tomorrow, opposite the sun in Sagittarius. Gateway for spiritual forces to pour through with this alignment that we have every month. Now, music and mantras. Language clothes thought. It's as sacred as it brings divine ideas and archetypes into correct expression. Languages can be words and mantras, art or music. There are many different kinds of languages. Mercury's ruler of Gemini verbalizes higher thought, whilst Mercury ruled Virgo writes down the language or crafts the art. Both these Mercury ruled signs are signs of communication, but Gemini really has the gift of the gab, so to speak, speaking through the spoken word. Virgo more the written word. Beethoven was always open to divine sounds from on high, translating them into earthly music, eventually becoming deaf to physical sounds. He had the Sun, Moon, and Mercury in Sagittarius, with Mercury opposing Mars in Gemini. That's a very volatile combination in astrology, and may have been one of the significators in his horoscope relating to deafness. But it's interesting, isn't it, given that Sagittarius is such a loud sign, and that he became deaf. Just as the Sagittarian archer releases the arrow, so this sign also stands for the spontaneous release of the Om in meditation, the divine sound that affirms the soul and is the start of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. I am the jewel in the heart of the lotus. That's what many monks and Westerners too, of course, repeat over and over again as an affirmation, and become that jewel in the heart of the lotus. So you can see that Beethoven was a mercurial messenger, bringing through the high inspiration of Sagittarius down to the physical plane. Or as St. John once said or affirmed, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In other words, the world was created through sound, through the formulation of a complex mantra that is still being sounded by the Logos, or God. And quoting here, the sound which was the first indication of the activity of the planetary Logos is not a word, but a full reverberating sound holding within itself all other sounds, all chords and certain musical tones which have been given the name of the music of the spheres, and dissonances unknown as yet to the modern ear. It is this sound which the rising one must learn to recognize, and to which he must respond not only by means of the sense of hearing and its higher correspondences, but through a response from every part and aspect of the form nature and the three worlds. So you may have heard of this term, the music of the spheres, which Pythagoras, I think, was the first one to coin, and which he, as an advanced initiate, no doubt heard. And indeed, other people have, through the ages, maybe some of you here have actually heard the music of the spheres on the inner planes, stimulated by meditation or other means. Sagittarius is also the traveler, the wanderer, the one who expands the higher consciousness through contact with foreign cultures and who may all have different religious practices and viewpoints. Sagittarius is the university academic who is learning higher knowledge through some institution. And as I said before, Sagittarius can be the boisterous party animal. Sagittarius can be the biker, or the whole group of bikers on their motorbikes roaring through the down the highway. Sagittarius being a sign of adventure, of daring. And of course, the USA has Sagittarius rising in its horoscope, as I discussed in my latest newsletter, devoted entirely to the USA's transits coming up for the next couple of years. So, in fact, Washington is a Sagittarius personality, and the 1776 chart, as I discuss in that, if you've read that newsletter, is Sagittarius rising with a Cancer sun, whereas Washington is a Cancer soul. So the roles are reversed in a sense between the esoteric rulerships of Washington and how the rulerships of that city are reversed for the nation as a whole in the exoteric chart. Of course, the esoteric chart, the USA is Aquarius rising with the Sun in Gemini in the 5th house. We don't know the other positions of the other planets. But anyway, so as I explained in my newsletter, I personally work with the interface between the known esoteric rulers and the more well-known exoteric chart, 1776. So Sagittarius is about, as I said, about one point of thought, and some of the founding fathers of the USA, such as Jefferson, had strong Sagittarius in their horoscopes, and they encoded the Constitution from a deeply philosophical point of view. That's why Sagittarius is so important, and the American Constitution is so important, because it was really wrought by some quite advanced disciples and one or two initiates, I expect, at that time in 1776, this new nation. And that's why right now there's such a huge, it's the biggest crisis in the nation's history on its first ever Pluto return, which has just gone through, but which may take another couple of years to integrate and to assimilate, and notwithstanding the other transits of planets, particularly Uranus, as I describe in my newsletter, square the Aquarius moon. Someone in the chat here has written something. Michael says, from the esoteric point, would you think a chart from when the Bill of Rights was signed, 15th of December 1791, would be appropriate? Possibly. I'm sure there's things in it that correspond to the original 1776 chart. I think some astrologers do use this one. It is a Sagittarian sun, of course, on the 15th of December, 1791. 15th of December, also an important date, which saw Alice Bailey leave this world in 1949. So, which means that she'll come back as a Sagittarius, just as an aside. An English woman who served most of her life, of course, in New York City. So, any other comments or questions there while we're on this subject? The immutable cross, of which Sagittarius and Gemini is part of, is quite unstable in many ways. Hence the name mutable, as in this certain plasticity and flexibility that mutable signs have, particularly demonstrated by Gemini. Gemini is a sign that can be here, there, and everywhere. It represents the archetypal monkey mind that you're trying to tame and concentrate when you start that first stage of meditation. Whereas Sagittarius, the opposite sign, is about that Zen archer who takes aim with a steady eye and arm and follows through to the target, the release of the arrow. So there is a good description of this polarity, of the tendency for Gemini to ramify and to scatter its energies, and the opposite in Sagittarius, that focuses to a point and orients or reorients to the target. Sagittarius being a sign of orientation and reorientation. So from one point of view, Gemini represents the lower mind and Sagittarius the higher mind. But that's not strictly true. But there's a lot of truth in that, and especially as it translates to the 3rd house and the 9th house, the areas of human experience which take their meaning from the 3rd sign Gemini and the 9th sign Sagittarius. So when we look at progression of signs around the zodiac, we see that Sagittarius precedes Capricorn, which I pointed out before, the mountain initiation in that diagram, in that painting, I should say, beginning. And the centaur wearing the goat skin, or actually, I think it's a goat skin, yeah, or is it the whole goat? I can't tell, but I think it's the skin. It precedes the 10th sign Capricorn, where the philosophical ideas that are generated in Sagittarius, that come from the heavens, so to speak, from the Jupiterian heavens that precipitate from that rain cloud of noble things. Those ideas and philosophical thought forms are codified in the following sign of Capricorn, which is a sign of the law, the status quo of society. And so every society, or so-called civilized society, lives by those laws. And of course, the politicians and parliaments and so forth around the world execute those laws, and the police force apply them as well, of course. And so these earthly laws very much approximate the spiritual laws, because the law has been so messed around with that, in fact, it creates one of the best range of TV shows on, like Law and Order, for instance, because people are always breaking the law. We're all at different levels of spiritual evolution, and we all try it on in terms of bending the law, avoiding the law, twisting the law, distorting the law. And here we have this another good illustration of Sagittarius, the truth, and Gemini, the lies. Again, very broadly speaking. So, in terms of the distortion or reinterpretation, if you like, the self-willed reinterpretation of how someone wants to apply something more selfishly or conveniently for their own interpretation of a particular law. So as we go into the Aquarian age, the earthly laws will come to a more refined approximation of the spiritual laws. They must do for human evolution to survive. Otherwise, if the gap between the two systems is too wide, then everything collapses and falls down. And in fact, this has happened many, many times in history. Human civilization goes in waves and reaches a peak, and then decays and goes into destruction and disappears. And of course, the various yuga cycles, such as the Kali Yuga, the age of death and destruction, which we're in now, also reflect those cyclic trends. So we've got a few minutes left now. I leave it open for anyone to make any comments or ask any more questions. Please don't be shy. Put something there on the chat.
Philip, while we
Yeah.
wait for any question, I would like to say what I was going to say in the beginning.
All right, please do.
Couldn't.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I would just like to remind that we started these full moon meetings two years ago on the full moon of Sagittarius.
Oh,
So
excellent.
yeah, and that we are going to start to do the new meditations on solstice and equinoxes. I'm not sure I'm saying it properly.
Yes,
That's
and
it.
also Inez sent out a letter, report of our latest directors meeting on the 19th of November, and told you about our past activities and future service activities that we're considering, plus also the fact that this Christmas time, or just before Christmas, the 22nd, did I say the 22nd or the 23rd of December, is our 4-year anniversary from when we first began. And I noticed we have a couple of past directors here tonight who have joined us in the meditation, and much appreciate your presence there, because they helped a lot to bring this this group into manifestation. But if you haven't read that letter, there's about 1 page of information that we sent out, and it has various links that you can check out on our website as well. Is there anything else that I missed out, Inez?
No, I don't think so. It was just that. Thank you, Philip.
So, what is the goal? I'm just asking what's it called? A question that doesn't need answering. What is the goal for this cycle that we're in now? What's the goal that we're all setting for ourselves individually and or as a group, which will take us, of course, into Capricorn and the following year, 2024, which is going to be a doozy, I'm sure, as we say in Australia. Many things going down, and we're in this incredible crisis period right now, where we're all being asked to step up prior to 2025, and of course the great gathering of hierarchy in Shambhala, and their determination about when they're going to reappear amongst humanity in the next few decades. It may be sooner rather than later, maybe even in some of our lifetimes, but we are right there, and that's why this crisis is so marked and so intense right now. So we all have to hang in there and keep going forward with our various service activities. So perhaps on that note, we'll conclude today's meditation. See you all on the inner planes tomorrow in your various meditations, wherever you are. And thanks very much, everyone, for coming tonight. Hand it back over to you, Inez.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you on the next meditation.